Alright, welcome to the latest Libertas video. Today we're going to be continuing our series on creating the Alexios or Kassandra, whichever you prefer. They're gauntlets from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. We're going to continue this process by painting today. So, in the previous video we did get these things all set up. You can take a quick look again, get the left and the right gauntlet. In between the last video and now, I did prime the right gauntlet by using Plasti Dip, which is what I said I was going to use. So that's all ready to go, and then the Warbler, like I said in the previous video, we are just going to be painting right on top of it. So pretty exciting. We're going to be using multiple types of paints and techniques, so hopefully this will be somewhat entertaining. I'll set up the GoPro and we'll get started. So here we go. Alright, so here we are starting to lay down the base layer of brown. Now I'll put all the paints that we use in the description below, but this is much more of a lighter brown that I am painting on directly onto the Plasti Dip. And then of course I bring in another darker brown and start layering that in as well. Now this is just kind of building up texture as we go along and starting to mix the two colors together, so it starts giving it that much more organic look. And then bringing in some of the black paint as well and mixing that in, just making another darker color, mixing that in with the pieces as well, and kind of going haphazardly on this entire process. Nothing too thoroughly thought out, but really trying to get more and more colors, just layers and layers of colors. So you see a little bit more of a red, brown that goes in there as well, just continuing to flush this out. So just lots of layers that are going down. Of course, kind of getting a natural organic look. And then here we go with the black, just laying that down on the left gauntlet to, just in case any of the gold were to appear through. A lot of those details will have some definition. And then here I start with the bronze color. So I hit a brief interlude in the painting process. The GoPro died out, so I continued on with the brass accents, getting the base layer down. Now I'm going to go over it with the heavy body gold acrylic and hopefully get another pass of color, maybe bring out a little bit more of that yellow tint that we see in the cosplay reference. But I'm really happy with how it's turning out. I really love the texture that's pulled out, and that's more from the Plasti Dip than the foam itself. One of the things you can do if you want to get a really smooth Plasti Dip, I know at least with tires, or rims I should say, you can do a thin tack coat, which is what we did, but then go over with thick, a nice heavy, even coat. So not to the point where you're going to create drips or anything, but it'll give it a little more smooth finish. What I did is more of a spritzing, which is kind of by accident. I kind of forgot. I hadn't done Plasti Dip in a long time, but it gave it this nice texture. So I think it's really helping sell the leather as well as the metal. So really happy with how that's turning out. Be excited to see how it goes forward. All right, so here I am layering in that heavy body gold paint onto the snakes and the eagle, and really bringing out that yellow true gold hue that is much more relevant or representative of the cosplay reference guide. I'm just using a small thin brush to add in these details. I'm just being patient, taking my time, especially on these thin details, to make sure I'm not painting where I shouldn't. Then you'll see that we do end up moving on to the left gauntlet itself and start with that bronze color, layering down I think at least 2 layers for sure before we move on. And of course you can see it's a lot thinner than the heavy body. So, and paint's on much more red, and you see I'm adding some of that detail back in, that red hue back into the eagles and the snakes and the details on the right gauntlet before doing a thin layer on top of the left gauntlet. And you can see the results here. You see just a little bit of that golden hue pulling through, but still you can see a lot of the red and the black underneath the details on the left gauntlet. Here you can see on the right gauntlet some of that bronze and gold kind of playing back and forth on each other. Gives it that more natural metallic look of the bronze. But of course the left gauntlet is still a little too red, so here we go back with the heavy body gold and really lay on nice thick layers on here. And I actually got a little worried that I was doing it too thick and just basically covered right over the paint that I was initially working on. But I needed that because that's what the cosplay reference guide looks like. It does look a lot more gold, almost a brass look, but it would be the bronze. And then I actually bring out some green and I start painting that on top of it. And that's really to try to capture some of that corrosion that you get from the sea, that salt water on the bronze, and that corroded look that happens with this type of metal. And you know, this is kind of just a part of layering in character into the gauntlet, and it has a story. And I also started adding some more red hue back in there. But of course, these layers ended up getting too heavy, so I started doing more thin layers of the gold once again on top of it to kind of dilute them down, but still allows the green and the red hints of that metallic look to pop through. And then here I am sealing these layers once I was happy with them. So this is a gloss sealer or gloss varnish, and it's just really gonna seal those colors in so that we can build on top of it for the distressing phase. So I did 2 layers of this.
All right, and we are back. It's a little early in the morning, but we're going to continue our painting process now. We'll let the varnish dry for about 2 days, which doesn't necessarily mean that it takes 2 days. That's just what it did for me. So we'll take a quick look at our next process. We're going to do a black wash on top of these things. That's really just going to be distressing the gauntlets, bringing a lot of the detail out of, you know, these recessed regions. So how we're going to do that is we're going to mix up some black acrylic paint with some water, paint it on top of the gauntlets, and then wipe away with a paper towel. So what that will allow us to do is, as the paint gets wiped away, it should remain in a lot of the crevices and cuts and details, so make those details really pop. And hopefully it will dull down this vambrace just a little bit. As you can see, it's a little glossy because I used a glossy varnish. Now we use the varnish to seal in a lot of the paints, just in case any of this really wet acrylic paint would have started disturbing and pulling off a lot of the color. I was really happy with how it is right now, so that's why I wanted to protect this base layer, and then we're going to build on top of that. So that's the reason for the varnish. The glossy one is just what I had. You can get a matte varnish. It probably would have looked a little bit better for the leather, but for these metallic accents, and of course for this metallic gauntlet, it really helps pop that shiny feel. So we'll set the GoPro back up and we will get started.
So now we're starting the distressing phase. Basically, I'm just watering down some of my black acrylic paint by dipping my brush into the water bottle a couple of times and bringing that water and mixing it with my blacks, and then painting it right on top of the vambrace, and then wiping away pretty much right away with a wet paper towel, and that just captures all those, the black in the cracks and crevices. Doing the exact same thing with the left gauntlet. And it can be a pretty repetitive process, but it is super effective in bringing out the detail, but also making it look a lot older, and just the before and after are kind of a striking difference. I always love it when I see these things distressed using this technique, so I love to do this.
All right, so we have finished up these distressing level. We only did 1 pass, so you could always do more if you want to, if you think it's more necessary, depending on what kind of feel you're going for. But you can see where the black was left behind. It really accentuates the detail, really pops a lot of the accents. So very cool. So where the battle damage is, very, very exciting to see that, basically just simulating what you would expect to find with an older piece of armor, where dirt and grime and maybe oils have been left behind, creating that older, worn feel. So that's what we wanted to do. Now, unfortunately, with the way that the gauntlet, the right gauntlet stands, I was hoping it would dull up a little bit more. It kind of did from the eye level, but if you look at, you know, say it from before and after on the video, might not really show, just because the way the highlights pop on the video itself. So going forward, we're going to be taking a dry brush technique. We're going to use a very stiff bristled brush, and we're going to very subtly paint in the highlights back in on the edges. So you'll see what I'm doing once we set up the GoPro again. So that's gonna really wrap up what we're gonna be doing with this video. We'll, of course, come back right after we're done with that to really, tell you where we're gonna go from here. But let's set that GoPro back up and we'll get started.
All right, so here we are doing the edge highlights. I take a stiff bristle brush and use the heavy body gold paint again, and I'm putting it on a paper towel and wiping most of it off before I transfer this over, and just using that stiff bristle to go across the edges, the hard edges of the piece, to pop the highlights on that edge.
All right, and we have completed the painting process. So let's take a quick look at these gauntlets before we head out. So overall, the edge highlights, they somewhat showed up, even to the naked eye. Sometimes it's hard to see because they're on such a similar color. But nevertheless, they did do something, especially if you rotate the gauntlet back and forth in the light. Sometimes you can catch that edge highlight detail. So that's the way to go though. Definitely go subtle to begin with and continue to build up. It's easier to add layers than it is to take them away. So if you're gonna do something similar, definitely go light at first and build up the layers. Otherwise, I really love how these are turning out. Love the distressing, love the look, love the color, everything. Of course, there are plenty of ways for me to improve upon these gauntlets. That much is clear, but for the first time doing Warbler, and the first time really getting these foam gauntlets going, I'm really loving the look. So very encouraged by this. Hopefully you are as well. Hopefully you are learning a lot through this entire process. I know I am. But hopefully you can get out there and do something similar yourself, whether it's Assassin's Creed or it's not Assassin's Creed. That's my passion, and that's what I'm working on. So hopefully it's inspiring you to go work on your own passion project. Of course, there's gonna be a lot of links in the description below where you can find a lot of the materials that we've used for this specific video, but also there's gonna be the resources like Punish Prop Academies, dry brushing techniques and stuff like that. So hopefully this will be very resourceful for you. But like I said, hopefully you are encouraged, entertained, and inspired to get out there and do something similar yourself. That's gonna do it for this quick video. We're gonna see you in the next one where we do work on the under gauntlets for these two gauntlets themselves, and we'll figure out how to attach them. So we're getting real close to the end. But until then, we'll see you on the next Libertas video.